Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to those who have been at retreat at Sesshin. We just returned this morning from our Interdependence Sesshin, our 14th. The 14th year we've done this. And by this time of day, the wind was up and it was really cooling off. Maybe we could open these side windows to maybe get some more circulation in here. Although as Zennies, we're not supposed to worry about heat and cold. So let's not worry about it, but, do what we can. Thank you. So we took up a koan in the manner that we do at retreats, and the koan was Shui Feng's Thirst and Starvation. And this, of course, is thirst and starvation existentially. Although at the time that the three monks who were involved in this particular exchange lived, starvation was a fairly constant or imminent situation. We don't, right here and at this time, we who are gathered here don't particularly suffer with that fear. Who knows what the future will bring? But any of us who engage a spiritual practice are really hungry. And the only food is, it doesn't have to do with vegetables. The food is the food of knowing the nature of our life and who we truly are, and being able to live in a way that is really true. True and not a lie, not a fabrication, not something that we're copying from somebody else. The beauty of Sesshin, our word for retreat, and I encourage everybody to engage Sesshin at some point, is that it is completely a ritual. The entirety is ritual. Every part of it, bowing, chanting, zazen, eating, walking, washing hands, lying down to rest. This is a ritual given to us by the ancients, given to us by Buddha, the leisurely one. At Sesshin, we're free to be leisurely, a rare opportunity. And yet, are we free, really, to be leisurely? Are each of us free? Do we have permission to be true to the time that it takes for every activity? Free to attend to only one thing at a time. One thing at hand, one breath, one taste. Can you hear back there? Yeah. Okay. In our daily lives as householders, we have a lot of personal rituals which resemble more closely habits, although some of us might think of particular rituals that we're fond of. The chances are they distinguish themselves from the kind of ritual that feeds and sustains by the quality of heart and the attention to detail, the satisfaction taken in each detail that we bring to them. Ritual has a timeless character to it, as well as being a very specific action. So ritual evokes the timeless. We are very captured and paced, usually, by a sense of time. What was, what's to be, what's supposed to be. But in a ritual life, we are free of that time reference. Taking our time in each motion reveals the timeless nature that is actually always available and characterizes moments of true being, characterizes moments that really stop us in our tracks, that let us know that there's something more than the usual habits of thought and activity that we spend most of our lives in. So for instance, when we bow, at home, we might bow quite casually and quickly when we approach our cushion for zazen after a busy day at work. When we're trying to slip in a little bit of zazen before going to bed, or before attending to family's needs, or late night work that has to be finished up. But practicing at home is essential if we live the life of the way of the Bodhisattva. Practicing at home helps us to remember refuge. Remember the larger context of this human life. So we're taking refuge anytime we bow. This is an attitude of reverence, appreciation, recognition. So when we come to our seat in the zendo, we bow to the cushion right here. Thank you. This will help. We turn around and we bow to the Sangha together with all beings. All of us help. We inherit this ancient wisdom of bowing, which doesn't show up pretty much anywhere in our culture. We're really lucky to have bowing. And actually bowing when you are very agitated and very upset is a wonderful thing to do. Full bows, just start doing them. Do 39, 27, 108. In the Korean Zen tradition, every morning before you sit, you do 108 bows. And I asked one of the Korean masters, would you show that to us? And she did 108 bows in 15 minutes. It was just, she was just constant motion, no resistance. It was magnificent, and it pulled up all of this chi, this life energy, so that when she sat, it was flowing. Try it. When we bow, every bow is a physical yoga in itself. So be sure when you bow that you really put yourself to it. Don't just do it as a performance or because it's expected. Really bow and put your forehead on the ground, and you lift the hands up, and you're lifting the Buddha, the feet of the Buddha, the Buddha self, the large, complete self that we all are, up. So it's a physical yoga in itself, as well as an active relinquishment, letting the previous moment go. Every time we bow, we're letting the previous moment go, flowing past any unhappiness, any complaints that we have about our jobs or our health, or how somebody looked at us and it felt judgmental, and it's actually our own minds. In bowing, we relinquish our unhappiness. We relinquish anything that's holding us to a constricted way of being. So bowing is a refuge ritual and a relinquishment of taking things personally. We're putting the small self aside when we bow. And we can receive the offerings of this moment, no matter what they are. Sometimes they're lovely, sometimes they're trying. It's all part of a complete life. You're not being singled out for difficulties. It's the first noble truths. We all have them. So Sesshin also gives us an opportunity to take everything in and notice how we try to take some things in and not other things in. I'm talking a lot about Sesshin, one, because we've just come from it and I'm filled with it, but also because it all applies all the time anyway. You know, we said as we were leaving Sesshin, we all said, okay, now for the much more difficult Sesshin of everyday life. You know, this is all what we deal with. This is our practice. Nothing other than practice. So when we do a retreat, we really get such a concentrated dose, a big bowl full of opening up the time frame and being helped to notice how wide open a day is in all of its minutiae. I mean, the day just goes on and on and on in the way it felt like as a child. Those long summer days, they just stretched on. Now, is that the way it is? Not really. So we notice all the minutiae, not only of our own self and our own mind stream, but all of the bugs around us and the flapping grass and the smells of the roses as you walk by, or everything. Everything is a detail, is a particularity of the one life. And we begin to taste all the flavors that we're usually too distracted from tasting to their fullest. Flavors that we really can avoid noticing, which makes up our whole life, is the nutrition, the great spiritual food, the rich spiritual food of our daily life, and that we avoid, we forget, we don't notice, we're distracted from by something else, very often mind created. I mean, thinking mind created. So we took up this koan, Shui Feng's Thirst and Starvation, and in it we're in company with 3 Zen worthies who are speaking to us from thousands of miles away and a couple of thousand years ago, or 1,000 years ago, about hunger, about thirst, our own. It is the human condition. It was then, it is now, it will be. So what are you hungry for? What are you thirsting for? How does your practice help you with this fundamental craving? And what was so striking to me in this Sesshin was there were a number of people who said, I actually never really thought about that before. What am I craving? What am I really craving? And we notice our strategies for meeting or avoiding or providing. One of these characters is Xuansha. And here's a little thing that he said. It's as if all of you are sitting on the bottom of a great ocean, completely submerged, and you're still holding your hand out to people and begging for water. I want to read the main case. There are a number of segments to this, but I'll just read the case. Shui Feng said, there are many people who sit beside a rice bucket, dying from starvation. There are also a great many who sit beside a great body of water, dying of thirst. Xuansha said, there are many who sink their heads inside a rice bucket. and will starve to death, even so. And there are many who stick their heads into the water and yet die of thirst. And then Yun Men later said, throughout the entire body is rice, throughout the entire body is water. So the first comment has to do with sitting beside a rice bucket. It's right here. And the next is sticking your head in a rice bucket. And then throughout the entire body is rice and water. And this bucket, in the first group that I was part of, Zen group, years ago, we used the same wooden buckets that were rice buckets for 1,000 years in the monasteries. Just wooden buckets with rice and wooden top. So this is so direct in its encouragement for us to look into this for ourselves in our own way. He nudges us to engage this question. So here are three masters of the way who are expressing slightly different angles on this hunger problem that is built into our very condition. Our own path lies past eating, past digesting, and points us the way to where every morsel of our days and nights are the meal of our life. Very often we kind of live alongside an image. You know, we pick it up from friends, from family, from the commercial vision of what a life is. That's the side. There's no way to take that in. Or we stick our heads in the bucket. But eventually we digest everything that is our life. Every moment, every particularity. We are really intimate with this life. We are intimate with everybody we encounter, everything we encounter, every situation. We're not distracted by our habitual avoidance strategies. Then we can realize the completeness of everything. Everything that arises in this moment, always complete. So we're at a meal that is complete. We called it a lot at Sesshin, we called it the banquet. And what are the flavors of a banquet? They're the 6 tastes. That's part of our chanting service. The 6 tastes: sweet, sour, bitter, tangy, mild, spicy. Each its own way of experiencing what it's like to be us. You know? You may specialize, you may really like the mild flavors. Nothing too vivid. Or maybe you really like the spicy. And then you really get thirsty. So we all come to Zen practice for something. We come for love. We come for companionship, peace and quiet from our own inner criticism or family struggles. Or we hunger for adequate recognition of who we are. Or we may be desperate for a sense of safety, as is the case if we've suffered extreme harm in our childhood. Or if we've suffered in our early years with lack of nurture, or parents who couldn't see us for who we are, because they help, usually parents who really take in their child without too much in between or too much projection onto the child grows up really kind of having a sense of their own experience and permission to live accordingly. Sometimes we feel growing up that we couldn't be loved as we are. We had to hide. Or maybe we're in actual physical danger and definite emotional danger. And our parental units or our community or family traditions can all be filled with suffering and distress. That is what we come to know the world as. Until maybe we get to Dharma of some sort, not just Buddha Dharma, but that's what we're talking about here. So there are many degrees and kinds of hunger and thirst that bring us to Zen practice. And some we know about. Others we may only begin to notice through years of practice. It's amazing how this continues to unfold and how what we notice about ourselves, our characterological traits, continue to show themselves up in ways that you might not have noticed before, which is one reason why it's so important to practice compassion. Because no matter what we see in ourselves, it's important to receive it with love, with parental love, kindness. So what's missing? That's what we always are investigating. What's missing? There's this phrase, talking about food does not appease hunger. There's a difference between my saying chocolate ice cream and the actuality of it. So all the words and teachings about true nature, the true nature of our life or who we are, isn't actual nourishment, though it can remind us to pick up our bowls and spoons, to open the mouth of our senses, our awareness, and receive kernel after kernel of sustenance that's contained in every moment. So this is where we start. All the words we study are empty, but they acknowledge, they point the way to what we have to realize in our own direct experience. So, sitting beside a rice bucket, we may remain hungry. It's what sustains long practice, especially initially. We just have a hint. We can smell the lovely aroma, but don't know how to take it in. So how far away are we when we are beside the rice bucket? How distant? How far beside your life are you? It's kind of an interesting image to think about. Okay, what do I know about beside? When we say, I'm beside myself, it's very descriptive. So we are admonished, we are encouraged to remember not to just sit on the cushion or the bench or the chair and let the mind wander around. Even as we sit in the rice of our life, it won't do. We don't just sit and kind of dream away, which is the idea behind Zazen. Not to interfere with what passes through, but to be eye of eagle, or another image is like a cat at a mouse hole. You're really present, you're really interested, you're hungry, and the food is right here. That's the spirit of Zazen. And when we say in Zazen we are a body sitting and breathing, it's not like our whole body is sitting, our whole body is breathing, body and mind together. not separate, doing the same thing. It's like in walking meditation, body and mind walking. Wei Feng is referring to all of the phenomena, the dreary, the wonderful, and the ordinary, that we may just not notice, not appreciate as the very food that we think we are looking for and don't have. Like we think we have to look somewhere else. And we can play it safe and stick to what we know and continue to be hungry and thirsty. Like a bird in a cage looking out there. How to get out there. And so we're looking where others are. And we're still not in our own life. And in this situation, it doesn't feel so vital. But it's familiar and it's safe. Looking over somewhere else. Someone else's solutions and strategies, somebody else's words. So here's another story about Great Master Xuanxia. One day he entered the hall but remained silent, so the hall is filled with monks. The monks sat there. Xuanxia sat there. Well, after a while of this, the monks grew impatient and they got up and started to leave the hall. And Xuanxia shouted, "See, they're all the same. Not a single one with wisdom. You see my two lips here and you cluster around seeking to get meaning out of some words. And here I am. I'm really bringing forth the Dharma. And none of you know it. So hard, so difficult." That's such a classic story. And really direct. So we all need to take this to heart. And when we discover Zazen and we really begin to practice, I mean, my instruction for years from teachers was just sit and follow your breath. And I kept thinking, oh, that's such a wimpy practice. And I didn't do it. Do it. Then you discover Zazen. And then begin to patiently eat and chew and swallow. And suddenly you're not so hungry anymore. You have discovered the true food. No longer need to spend a lot of time staring at the rice bucket that's sitting right over here. Our states of mind continue to open and become more spacious with the immediacy of the taste of presence. And then, at some point, it occurs to us that we can just manifest this fully anytime, anywhere. Not just in Zazen, anywhere in our life, in our daily conditions. Yun Man, who was Wei Feng's Dharma heir, was asked by a monk, "What is Zen?" And Yun Man said, "Yes." So here's another story, and it's about home leaving. Home leaving is the phrase that we use for what we do when we take up the way of Zen. And actually, in the olden days, it meant becoming ordained and leaving and going to the monastery. We are leaving and going into the monastery of our daily life. Much more difficult in certain ways, actually. So this monk asked Yun Men, Great Master Yun Men, if one's parents won't allow it, then one can't leave home. How can one leave home? And Yun Men says, shallow. The monk said, I don't understand. And Yun Men said, deep. Isn't that amazing? It's just amazing. He didn't follow the framework set up by the question. He just really helped say, yeah, you're asking me to solve your life. Forget that. That's not going to be useful. That's not actually what you really want to know. And I don't understand. That's right. It's not a matter of understanding. Really simple. So he's telling us not to worry about understanding. Just pay attention closely to your own experience. Engage wholeheartedly to your own mind stream. Be aware of the openness of the words about, and not get fixated on the words. Not hold on to some fixed idea about yourself, about the world, and even about Buddha Dharma. That can be a big trap. We have a lot of fancy words and concepts, which come to us from very different cultures. So sometimes they're obscuring, and sometimes they're clarifying, and we never know which it's going to be. So we have to look into our own rice bucket, taste our own rice. Throughout the entire body is rice. Throughout the entire body is water. This is really a practical statement. All the phenomena of our lives, all the wide field of being and non-being, the interbeing that we are completely dependent on for our life, which is always right here. So one of the questions we can ask is, what do you consume? What do I consume? I hear a lot, and I know you do too. How many times any of us say how down we are about the state of the world? And I say, yes. What is Zen? The state of the world, yes. If our entire diet is composed of media, news, hearsay, reporting, commercial culture, our own ideas and beliefs and opinions, then we immerse in. We're constantly going everywhere in our cars. If this is what's in the bucket we're sticking our heads inside of, then this is what we're eating, then we remain intensely hungry and parched, thirsting for a cool drink of refreshing water. One of the things this koan brought up was the recognition that there's another right in the list of right mindfulness, right understanding. It's right eating. Not only right eating in terms of nutrition and farming methods that don't harm the earth, but what are we eating? What are we consuming? How many of us experience that all this news leaves us feeling really depressed and depleted and pessimistic, and doesn't leave us any energy or heart to meet these dire conditions that we are called on, actually, to respond to with vision. And there's little vision around at this point. With a warm heart, no matter what, and the wisdom of what's actually so, and patience. And instead, our depression and frustration just compound the difficulties in the world. It is not selfish to wake up to our true nature. It's essential. It's essential to wake up. If we are to contribute any benefit. So I know I'm going on a bit. I hope you'll just indulge me. You mind? Is it all right? Aitken Roshi used to say, "How am I doing?" We say, "You're a Zen master. You're not supposed to say that." That's why he was so great. He really still is a human being. Okay, so these are the 4 kinds of eating that the Buddha taught about. The first is eating by portion, bite by bite, bit by bit, the way humans and animals, and he said the Asuras, the power-seeking, angry gods, eat bit by bit, bite by bite. Then there's eating by contact, which is the way hungry ghosts and spirits eat. They attach to ordinary beings and deplete the energy and health of those they attach to. Right? So far he's talking about different aspects of us, right? The different realms of existence. Human, animal, hungry ghost, angry gods. And then there's eating by thought. It doesn't refer to ingesting actual food, material food, but ingesting the bliss of dhyana, the nourishment that samadhi states give us. Samadhi states are when we are really absorbed. All past and futuring is gone, all me and the world as separate is gone, and we are thoroughly, wholeheartedly engaged, and awareness is wide open. There's just activity. And that's what's meant by no self. And then the last is eating by consciousness. And this includes the beings of the formless realms up through the minds of neither thought nor non-thought. And what he means by that, I believe, is open awareness, wide awareness, non-dual, and that's Zen awakening. This complete moment, just as it is. So how does this function? What are we going to do with this teaching? And I just want to share with you one of my favorite exchanges between a student and a master. And the two are Yun Men, before he had really refined his own clarity. And he comes to the room of his teacher, Musho, and he knocks on the door. "Who is it?" And Yun Men says, "It's me." Musho says, "What do you want?" This is through the door. And Yun Men says, leaning against the door, "I'm not clear about my life. I'd like the master to give me some instruction." And so Musho opens the door and takes a look at Yun Men and closes the door. And so Yun Men did this 3 days running. And on the 3rd day, when Musho opened the door, Yun Men stuck his foot in the door. And Musho grabbed Yun Men and said, "Speak, speak!" And Yun Men began to speak. And Musho said, it gave him a shove, and he said, "Too late," slammed the door. And slammed the door on his foot and broke his foot. And at that moment, Yun Men awoke. Now, you don't have to break your foot, but sometimes actually if you have a sudden accident that catches you by surprise, nothing else is happening but that. You have no thought, it's just happening. right? And that's what this story is pointing at. And Yunmen realized, oh, direct experience only. So I guess, to sum this up, the life of this body is not a metaphor. What we're doing in this practice is learning how to truly eat what is most sustaining and nourishing. It's really precious. And every moment that we practice together in Sangha, which is rather essential, it really is. It's an incredible blessing, and so we all need to use it well and appreciate that we have a Sangha. And in thanks, I came across a thanks prayer, a thank you, that I wanted to share because I thought it was quite wonderful. And it's from the Haudenosaunee clan, which are a group of first people in the northeast of what we call our country. It goes like this: we give thanks to all the waters of the world. We're grateful that the waters are still here and doing their duty of sustaining life on Mother Earth. Water is life, quenching our thirst and providing us with strength, making the plants grow and sustaining us all. Let us gather our minds together, and with one mind, we send greetings and thanks to the waters. So may we all live in such an intimate way. It really matters. You matter. Your practice matters. And I'm glad for all of you.
Please open your chant book.